one of our buddies. We don't have many Byron Donalds, I must tell you. I'm very careful who we consider buddy over here, but you're definitely one of them. How are you?
I'm doing good, Mark. How you doing, my friend?
Very, very well. You know, this George Stephanopoulos and you really kicked his ass, may I say, and I think I just did. But you did. When you sit down for an interview and you have a guy like this who starts telling you, lecturing you as a black guy, pretty much what you can and cannot say about race, when he never shuts the hell up about race, and his party never shuts up about race, and his profession never shuts up about race, and they target black conservatives, they target people like you, they target people like Clarence Thomas, so they target conservative women and so forth. They really don't mind talking about race as long as you agree with their left-wing approach. Isn't that pretty much it?
No, you're absolutely correct. And, I tell people all the time that the people who are the most intolerant, and, I don't like really talking about race, but if they want to talk about it, let's talk about it. The most intolerant of them all are these white liberals, because they're the ones who have it in their worldview that it is not possible for you, depending on the color of your skin or depending on your gender, to be able to have a different political viewpoint than they, outside of what they already have for you. And that's what's really destructive. So, Stephanopoulos, I went back and watched a video of it because I'm sitting in a remote truck and I couldn't see him. And I'm looking at the audio, the video, and I'm like, why is this guy looking so angry? And it's really because I'm challenging what he, for most of his adult life or all of his adult life, has thought. And what's happening under the radar, under, the media and the major parties, is that you do have black voters and Hispanic voters who are starting to think differently about their politics. And it's scary to them. And so this is how they react.
And they do this groupthink. And they do it based on identity politics. And they've been doing it for decades. Every presidential election, a Republican has to deal with this, a Republican candidate. It's not just Trump, but especially Trump. And so when you probably said, I got to deal with this, and you deal with it, Then they get offended. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Wait a minute. You're doing this identity politics. Let's talk about it. She's this, she's not that. How dare you talk about that? In other words, how dare you question them about it? Did he discuss many of the substantive policy issues? Did he discuss Kamala Harris's radicalism and her flip-flops? Did he get into any of that with you?
No, he didn't want to. He only wanted to talk about her identity and January 6th. And like Mark, we could talk about those things, but those aren't the issues that are really challenging the American people on a day in, day out basis. People see the stock market, but it's bigger than the stock market. It's the fact that inflation has destroyed the purchasing power of the American people, especially poor Americans in our country. It's the massive open borders, Mark, you've talked about it. It's the fact that Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and this administration, they have defied the Supreme Court. They defy the rule of law, but they want to lecture about who's going to be a dictator on day one. And we all see what's happening across the globe right now. This has been the very worst administration. And Kamala Harris, she's to the left of Joe Biden. So don't assume that because she's running around and all she's talking about is she wants to move forward and not going back. She has a very radical ideology, and she has a very radical set of policies that they don't want to talk about. They just want to talk about race. They want to talk about abortion. They want to gaslight, and they want to deflect. And what they're hoping on is that enough Americans decide to say, oh, well, maybe this voting for history thing is going to be okay. When in reality, what we need is a strong leader who has a vision for this country, and that man's Donald Trump.
It's amazing. They keep bringing up January 6th. He was part of an administration, Bill Clinton, that literally gave clemency to FALN terrorists.
Yep.
They gave clemency to FALN terrorists. Terrorists, real terrorists, who attacked the Capitol building with guns. Excuse me. In this particular case, they shot cops and so forth. So they gave FAL, and it was at the 11th hour, and then he points a finger at you talking about January 6th. Isn't it amazing?
But this, Mark, I'm going to tell you, man, all they want to do is deflect and distract. Meanwhile, it's 15 days since Kamala Harris was basically turned into Cleopatra in front of our eyes. 15 days, and she can't answer a question from George Stephanopoulos or any other media person. And the media, they're twisted. They don't know what to do. because they covered for Joe Biden. Then when they got exposed, they trashed Joe Biden, forced him out of the race, and now they have Kamala Harris, and now they're trying to do the same protection racket for her, basically setting up this facade that she's the second coming of Barack Obama, when the truth is she's a very radical, progressive Democrat who doesn't have good policy ideas for our country. So, we could talk about these other issues, but the facts remain. If Kamala Harris gets 4 years, we're going to be steeped into World War III. I have no doubt about that. And also, our economy is going to continue to stagnate. People are going to continue to fall behind. And then what is she going to do then? Come out and give us a word salad? If she comes and speaks to us at all, that's not the type of leadership our country needs.
I want to clarify, just to be accurate here. On August 11, 1999, Clinton commuted the sentence of 16 members of the FALN, a Puerto Rican paramilitary organization that set off 120 bombs in the United States, mostly in New York and Chicago. There were convictions for conspiracy to commit robbery, bomb-making, sedition, as well as firearms and explosive violations. The 16 were convicted of conspiracy and sedition, sentenced with terms ranging from 35 to 105 years in prison. Clinton offered clemency on the condition that the prisoners renounce violence. They already committed violence. And so this is a guy who was a member of that administration. And he talks about sedition. It just amazes me how the media, with all their Democrats, rewrite history. It's just appalling to me. Now, a guy like Stephanopoulos will attack Clarence Thomas till he's blue in the face. That is till Stephanopoulos is. And they're picking on the man because he's black. Let's be honest with it. They don't pick on Sotomayor, who's the most corrupt member of the Supreme Court, with her book deal, with the fact that she didn't recuse herself when it involved her own publisher, with the fact that she used Supreme Court staff to shake down organizations and libraries and others to buy more of her books. I mean, it's explicit. And they never mention her. Isn't that amazing, too? But anyway, I get the point. Here's the thing. She is in the candidate protection program. She is being protected by the Praetorian Guard media. They want to do for her what they did for Joe Biden. You think it'll work? Or do you think the people will get to find out what they're actually voting for or against?
The only reason why I don't think it's going to work with her is because there's just too many videos out there, Mark, of not just the terrible policy positions, but the cackling and the crazy word salads, like she didn't do her homework, so she's just throwing words out there to sound intelligent, but she actually didn't say anything. And at the same time, we're in this situation in our country where people are just fed up. People are really fed up around America because this is the Biden-Harris administration. She was there with Joe Biden. She said she was the last one in the room when Joe Biden made the decision with her to withdraw from Afghanistan, and 13 of our soldiers were killed. She's the last one in the room when the intel reports were showing Vladimir Putin amassing his troops on the Ukrainian border, and they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing until Putin already invaded. She was right there. So for the American people, what's Kamala Harris going to do when you have a hot war between Israel and Iran, and then you have this continuation of this war between Russia and Ukraine? Is she going to come in there and broker peace? I don't think so. And who that puts at risk are young men and women in our military, some of whom are already en route to the Middle East because of the disaster of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. That's what really matters. I think that's what the American people are thinking of.
Look at the situation that was there when Trump left the Middle East. I mean, it was calm, calmer than I can ever remember. And diplomacy and commercial relations with 5 Arab countries. Saudi Arabia was next in line. These guys come in. Iran was dead. And they breathe life into Iran. They fund their treasury. They build up their military. The opposition there is quelled. And they're funding. And now Israel is literally surrounded. And what do? As of 2 weeks ago, they're trashing Netanyahu publicly, and the enemy sees this. Have you ever seen insanity like this before?
No, I haven't. And what's worse is, not only did they trash Netanyahu's speech, she's the presiding officer for the United States Senate. She didn't even have frankly, the respect for Israel, our greatest ally in the region, to be there and greet him at the airport when he landed, or be in the chamber of the House of Representatives when he spoke. We never seen anything like this before. What did she do? Some weak photo op? And, Mark, we're talking about Kamala Harris, obviously, because she's the one that they've anointed. All the things that we've talked about in this segment, we haven't even talked about the border. The border is still a massive catastrophe. And there are millions and millions of people that are going to have to be deported, because it's not just the fact that they're depressing wages for low-skilled workers in the United States. They're also taking resources away from young kids. These are the illegal alien children who are in our public schools, and they're taking resources from poor kids in our public schools who are trying to catch up from the fact that the Democrats and the AFT unions kept poor kids out of classrooms using COVID-19 as an excuse. All of this is the Democrat crazy agenda that Kamala Harris isn't going to reverse course. She's going to continue.
All right. I know you had to take time out of your schedule. You have another event scheduled, and I want to thank you. You're really terrific, and we appreciate it. Keep it up, brother.
Thank you, Mark. Take it easy, my friend.
You too. He's a great guy, great wife, great kids, just a great guy altogether.